Again, thank you so much for joining us for this edition of the GMF webinar series. We host this series where every month we feature a different topic focused on one of our GMF programs. Today, we're talking about how to engage with residents during deep energy retrofits. My name is Stephanie Pino. I'm a project officer with the Green Municipal Fund's Capacity Development Team, and I'm supported today by my colleagues, Jesse Granger and Rosabelle Rosario, both of whom are also with the Green Municipal Fund. So before we get going, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. Today's event will be taking place in English with French interpretation available. To join the interpretation, you can click on the interpretation button, which is in the lower right-hand side of your screen, the little globe there. As we move through the presentations today, I invite you to submit your questions to the Q&A box as they come up, and then we'll address them in our Q&A session, which will be more towards the end of the webinar. And then you're also welcome to add any comments in the chat box throughout the presentation in the language of your choice. We'll keep an eye out for any clarification questions you may have that can be addressed. Otherwise, if you have questions again in the chat box, we'll address them at the end at our question period. And I will be asking for some feedback at some point, so I'll invite you to add things to the chat box at that time. So I want to take a moment to acknowledge where we're all coming from today. So myself and the two speakers are joining you from different parts of Canada, and I wish to acknowledge the traditional territories each of us is speaking from. So in Ottawa today, I'm in Ottawa at the FCM offices, and we are located on the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. Our first speaker is joining us from Toronto, which is the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Wendat peoples, governed by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. And our second speaker is joining us from Calgary, which are the traditional territories of the peoples of Treaty 7, including the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Tsuut'ina, and the Stoney Nakoda nations, as well as the Métis Nation of Alberta, Districts 5 and 6. We honor these cultures and traditions of all the Indigenous peoples across these regions and the elders of past, present, and future. So today's webinar is going to be a look into how to engage residents before, during, and after deep energy retrofits. The retrofit process can be an enormously disruptive situation to residents' day-to-day lives. So engaging with them throughout the process is really, really important. So we're going to look at how to effectively communicate to residents the challenges, disruptions, and also the benefits of a deep energy retrofit. We'll look at some examples of best practices and lessons learned. So I am so pleased to introduce our speakers today. We have joining us from the Atmospheric Fund is Caitlin Carroll. She'll be speaking to us today about the benefits of engaging residents, along with the best practices to do so. And then we also have John Jackson from Sarcee Meadow Housing Cooperative. This co-op is actually currently undergoing a large-scale capital repair project with support from SAW. So before we get there, I will just speak to you a little bit about the Green Municipal Fund and SAW specifically, and I'll explain what that acronym means. So for those of you who may not know, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities has been the national voice of municipal government since 1901. We have nearly 2,000 members across the country, representing more than 90% of Canada's population. FCM advocates to the federal government on behalf of municipalities and also delivers programmings to help municipalities tackle local challenges. Our largest program is the Green Municipal Fund, or GMF, a leading program in driving local green innovation across the country with the double mission of one, to supporting municipal initiatives in sustainable development through funding, and two, sharing knowledge and lessons learned through capacity development, or another way of phrasing that, through online tools and resources, trainings, peer networking, and peer learning opportunities. This fund is open to municipalities large and small in every province and territory. So GMF was established in the year 2000 through an endowment from the federal government. We offer funding in five key sectors: energy, transportation, waste, water, and land use. In 2019, the federal budget was significantly expanded the work of GMF, allowing us to create three new streams of programming, focusing on increasing energy efficiency in residences, large community buildings, and affordable housing units. So the webinar today is brought to you by our Sustainable Affordable Housing Program. In its 20 years, GMF has had some funding for local affordable housing projects. However, this investment significantly expanded our capacity to do so and has created a stream of funding that is focused on and designed to meet the needs of affordable housing projects specifically. So with that being said, I would like to invite our first speaker, Caitlin Carroll, to give us a little bit more insight into how the Atmospheric Fund has engaged in or worked with residents.
Great. Thank you so much, Stephanie. I'm just going to share my presentation with everyone. And hopefully you can see that now.
Yep, we're good.
Great. So, yes, as mentioned, my name is Caitlin Carroll. My pronouns are she, they, and I am the Retrofit Services Manager at the Atmospheric Fund. I'm really excited to be here today to talk about resident engagement in retrofits. This is a space I've been working on for the past 7 years, basically my entire time at TAF, and it's something that I'm really passionate about as well. So before we get into it, I'll just introduce TAF really briefly. We are a nonprofit city agency. We have an endowment from the City of Toronto, the Province of Ontario, and the Government of Canada. And I manage projects that are part of our Retrofit Accelerator. So in the Retrofit Accelerator, we work with building owners to demonstrate deep energy efficiency retrofits. And we seek to design retrofits that we're really going to maximize the benefits to tenants. So we're talking about like their comfort, health, affordability. And the key ingredient to our project success has always been through resident engagement. And who are residents, really, when we use that term? We're talking about people from young to old, single folks to families, just a whole diverse amount of people. Canada-wide, 3% of renters are rent geared to income. 33 are market rent and 67% are owners, but that could be different depending on, where exactly you are in the country. But, it does come with its own unique opportunities and challenges. And so I really want to talk about like where we start in the very beginning of our retrofit process, even before we've reached out or contacted anybody, we want to start with assessing the impacts that there are going to be to residents. So we have a number of questions that we will kind of ask ourselves. The first one being, how invasive is this retrofit going to be? Is it going to impact the livability of the suite? If so, for how long? Are there going to be, you know, power outage situations, water, situations, noise? These are all things that we would just want to quantify and consider. And then second question we would really ask is if there are any like hazardous materials or mitigation that would need to be done there. So I think a lot of us are aware that asbestos is quite common in older buildings. That's one thing where we might want to consider um, what approach we're going to take. And the third thing we want to consider is just who are living in these homes. Are there children who are going to be home during the day? Are there pets who are going to be around? And how are we going to make sure that they are safe and secure during our process? And then the last question we want to consider is really something that's become more common now that a lot of folks are working from home, but just like, is there a large population of folks who are working from home? And if so, how is the work going to impact them. And I think that's especially considering like power off situations and noise situations, right? At the end of the day, these answers will actually help inform our plans for working in suite, and they might actually impact our design decisions. So now I'm going to walk through in the next couple of slides our approach to resident engagement. And I'm going to start with one of the most important aspects, which is communication. Um, First, we want to inform our residents of our retrofit work early and often. I really cannot stress enough how important this point is, I think. It's best to use multiple pathways to reach the residents and not just rely on things like notice of entry, which don't often provide a lot of context or information, right? We want to try things like lobby intercepts, if you have an email list, postering, flyering, and doing all of that well in advance of the work actually even starting. And you want to translate the materials where applicable. If you know that there are a lot of language barriers, it's really worth it to understand what those languages could be and translate the material so everybody has like fair and equitable access to the information. And then the last kind of point on that is that I think town halls or like drop-in sessions are really good options for interacting and engaging with people. So sometimes we might just have like a little snack and a little coffee and ask residents to come by during their day or after work and talk to us and find out what we're going to be doing in their space and get their feedback as well, right, on how they feel about that. So that's kind of the first point, which is about informing the residents of the work. And then the second point is training the residents to use new equipment. I find this really especially important when we're installing new controls and thermostats. Uh, Sometimes it's not the most intuitive what these controls mean, so providing simple materials to the residents so that they can get accustomed to their new system is important. And when I say simple, it could be even down to like pictographs. Like maybe no words are necessary, but just really thinking about how you're going to convey how to use this equipment. And in certain cases, you might want to do hands-on training as well, either like one-to-one at the time of installation, or maybe it can be group training depending on what makes sense for your community. And the last thing I want to talk about is something that TAF does. It might not be possible for every building owner. I understand there are time constraints and there are just people constraints to getting surveys done, but we find that surveying the residents before and after the retrofit work is really important because it allows us in the pre-retrofit phase to identify more opportunities. If people are saying, you know, I'm always overheated in my suite, we might think about our heating load calculations. Maybe things are oversized. If people are telling us about certain behaviors, we can look at how that may have changed in the post retrofit with a different system, or how that may have not changed and why that might be impacting our energy savings. So these are important things that I like to see done as much as possible. Moving into the construction phase, we want to minimize the time spent in suite. So construction is going to happen in people's homes and it's going to be somewhat interruptive of their daily life. But how can we minimize that as much as possible? One of the things you can do is actually, if you have a vacant suite, try to rehearse the installation and optimize it beforehand. Really understand how your different trades are going to overlap and work with one another, and understand if there's any opportunities to kind of tighten up sequencing, limit the amount of time that you'll be really intruding in people's suites as much as possible, you know? Um, and then use prefabrication wherever possible. For example, if you're doing a heat pump project, you might be installing bulkheading. Bulkheading is something really easy. You can actually, you know, prefabricate outside of the suite and just bring that inside when it's already kind of formed. And the last thing I want to say on this point is just we like to consider minimizing resident impact as a criteria for design. And I think that's something that is really great to bring into your projects. So when you're looking at all of your different retrofit measures, really focusing on how can I limit the impact on residents as much as possible. Again, focusing on the construction and the in-suite work, I think we want to clearly communicate our expectations and requirements to our project partners, our trades, whoever's going to be doing the work in the suite. It's important that they understand that we're working in people's homes and there's a certain level of extra care that needs to go into doing that work that might not happen in an unoccupied building or new construction, right? So some basic things are just protecting all of your surfaces, your floors, furniture, woodwork, using dust barriers or portable folding safety barriers where necessary, leaving the home clean and safe with a thorough cleanup, especially in the COVID era. I do think it's great to sanitize and wipe down any areas where you may have been touching, just so that the residents feel a little bit safer about that. And then the last point here is if there's a lot of residents who particularly leave their suites during the day when work might be done, they might feel a little uncomfortable about all of their stuff and people coming in and out and just like the security issue around that. So sometimes it is beneficial to have a third party key holder or like a security company come in who will be standing outside the doors just to make sure that, everything is safe and secure. It's These approaches are really case by case. It depends on the needs of every community. And the next point I want to focus on is super critical. I feel like I don't see this done enough. But really, we want to celebrate project kickoff and project completion. These retrofits that we're doing, as Stephanie said, there is inconvenience to residents. There is some disruption. And we want to recognize that. We want to admit that that's true, but we also want to thank them for, their time and their cooperation. And we want to recognize that they have a huge role to play in the project's success. Um, this is their space, and this is, their behaviors will impact the energy usage, sorry. And we just really want to make sure that we're seeing them as another collaborative partner in this experience. So some things you might consider, we've done like barbecues, we've done like really fun things like face painting. If there's a lot of children in that one community, you might want to focus on some children activities. Give the parents a little bit of a break so they can come and listen to you talk about energy, but they don't have to worry about the kids because they're entertained. If it's more of like a seniors community, maybe it's more of a lunch thing. Just kind of trying to, select what works best for your residents and take this as an additional opportunity to engage them and educate them and also hear their experiences and learn from that. All right. I feel like I've sped through this, but getting to the last couple of points here. For those of you who have multiple buildings in your portfolio, it would be really important to build a standard and replicable resident engagement plan, a template for that, a template for any of your materials going out. Not sure how many people already have that in place. It would be great for me to know if you do. But the reason for that is I think when you have plans and templates, it's just going to be so much easier for you to commit to doing the engagement, right? You've already got the stuff there. You're going to use it. You're going to put this as a priority in all of the projects that you do, right? So I would love to see that happening more and more, and just hoping that we can all really engage with residents and see them as collaborative partners. And then the second point here is just leveraging the capacity in your organization to lead the work. So if you have a communications team, if you are a larger company, that would be really helpful. But even your project managers might have a lot of experience. And I will say, as like a project manager myself, I think that these engagement events can be really fun. I always learn a lot. I never come away from an event feeling like, oh, that was a waste of my time. So leveraging that organizational capacity can also be really a work benefit in a way. And the last point is just iterative learning on the processes. Um, what works in one community might not work in another, but developing and kind of improving your templates and materials that you saw in point one over time will be really influential. And the final point is just that, the success of a retrofit project really does depend on resident engagement and collaboration. And I would love to hear from anybody about any work that you've been doing and any experiences that you have had. And you can contact me on the information here on this slide if you wanted to share. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Caitlin. That was amazing. It's clear that you have done this a few times.
A
So
few
that's really
times.
great. And I loved your point about having some kind of a simple reference for residents to look at for the new technology. We had a heat pump put in a few years ago, and every season I forget which one I'm supposed to go on.
Yeah, yeah. And I
Thanks
guess
so much.
just to add on that, stickers can be great or magnets, keep it simple.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, great. So I would love to invite John now to share his screen and tell us a little bit more about the project you're currently undergoing at Sarcy Meadows Housing Cooperative.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. Um, it's an honor to be here today and present. We're going to start with just a bit of a background on Sarcy Meadows, who we are and what we are. Um, so Sarcy Meadows is a housing cooperative located in Southeast Calgary. And a housing cooperative means that our residents are members and they actually own shares in the not-for-profit corporation that owns the land and the buildings. So the land was originally purchased from the city of Calgary in 1970, and it was part of a planning process led by 7 individuals that dreamed and dreamed big. We're located on 35 acres. It's an extremely large site. We're actually the third largest cooperative in Canada. The land we purchased it for 385,000, and then to build it was 6,382,000. And our first members moved in 1971. So a little bit about us by the numbers. We have 11 parking lots. We have 18 kilometers of sidewalk, which, like in last week where we got almost 40 centimeters of snow, or is a bit of a challenge to keep clear. Our units are comprised in 74 buildings, and we have 380 of them. And they're all townhouse type units, and they're a mix of 2, 3, and 4 bedrooms. Finally, we have 1,100 residents, of which about 45% of them are seniors now. The average length of tenure for our residents is 26 years, and we're now seeing our third generation of members moving into units on their own. So back in 2017, our board of directors undertook a building condition assessment to learn about the state of our units. And from there, it led to a deeper dive on the envelope and the planning process really got underway. This is an example of what one of our units looks like currently. And part of it, we wanted to completely upgrade the look and feel of the unit. So we're taking it from this to this. During the planning process, we wanted to make commitment to our members, and the board of directors and our task force that was leading the planning stages developed guiding principles for the project. And these principles are our promise to the members of how the project will be undertaken. So the very first is zero member displacement. With 1,100 residents, almost half of which are seniors, we couldn't ask them, yeah, you got to move out of your unit for about 6 weeks or so. We wanted to make sure that no member was displaced during construction. A year in, we are almost completely successful. We did have to displace one member for a week because of some extensive wood rot damage that we discovered. We committed to move with a sense of urgency to minimize the damage to our units. And this was founded on the assessments that we had done and the amount of water penetration and air leakage we were seeing in the units. We wanted, and this is very important, we wanted to preserve Sarcee Meadows as an affordable housing community for generations to come. And it really speaks to our commitment to our community, not just as members of Sarcee Meadow, but the broader community of Calgary, as we are one of the largest affordable housing communities in the city. We also wanted to gather enough information to not limit our future options. And while this is an energy retrofit and we are seeing gains in energy efficiencies and reduction in greenhouse gases, our board has also committed that this is the first step on our path to net zero. So when we were doing the work on this retrofit, we needed to make sure that we weren't going to cause barriers to go deeper into energy gains in future years. We also wanted to ensure we have the best information, materials, and advice guiding us on the path. And we've seen that through our project partners. Our project management company is WSP, one of the largest in the world. Our prime consultant is RJC Engineers, and our construction manager is CANA. We wanted to minimize disruption to our members both today and tomorrow. We wanted to ensure that through the actual construction work, we were taking into consideration our members. How is it going to impact their lives, and how can we better it for future years? We also wanted to improve our homes while minimizing our environmental footprint, and this is seen through our energy efficiency gains and our greenhouse gas reductions. We also wanted to improve the resiliency of our homes. We've talked about wanting this retrofit to last for another 50 years. One of the most important things we did when we started the planning, the real deep dive planning, was to engage members, was we had the board strike a design committee. It's 9 volunteer members from the community. And we were very targeted when we selected these members because we wanted to ensure that the composition of the design committee represented the diversity of our community. And we saw that through who we ended up having join the committee. It is and was the sole decision-making group involved in the project. They made all the decisions around the design, from aesthetics to the technical features. Staff advised, excuse me, but we had no vote on any design decisions. And in a lot of instances, the design committee would actually meet without staff or consultants present when they were making final decisions. So what is the design? So we're starting with new insulation in the walls. We're opening all the walls right back to the vapor barrier. So new bat insulation in the walls and increased blown-in insulation in the ceilings. Excuse me. We're using a hardy board cement fiber cladding system, which will increase the resiliency and the fire rating for the buildings. New shingles. And these are, we did look at class 4 impact resistant shingles, as Calgary is definitely known for hail, but we ended up, after doing life cycle cost analysis, going with a longer term warranty shingle, but not the impact resistant ones. New triple pane windows to replace all the existing windows. And finally, new doors. Excuse me. And then to help the units, we've also installed energy recovery ventilators, which will help moderate the temperature while maintaining constant fresh airflow into the units. It's a $52 million project. And as part of the $52 million, we have $5.3 million in our excuse me, in our contingencies. So you've heard me mention about the efficiency gains, and what are they exactly? We're going to see a 32% reduction in our energy consumption through the units. And as part of that, a 28% reduction in greenhouse gases. And we would have liked to have gone further in our first round, but we also had to keep in mind the impact of the debt carrying costs on our members' housing charges. So when we turn to the budget and how are we actually going to pay for this, we've received funding from a number of different sources. So in terms of grants or forgivable funding, we've invested 3.4 million of our own money. We've received 5.7 million from CMHC. The FCM and the Green Municipal Fund are contributing 3.6 million as a grant, and then the government of Alberta has contributed 3.3 million. So our repayable funding, or our loan, will be 30 million from CMHC and 6.3 million from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. So as far as engagement goes, this truly was and continues to be a member-led and a member-involved project. 70 of our members, almost 20%, have been involved in some stage of the planning, whether it's through serving on the board of directors, the task force, our design committee, or one of the various committees that evaluated RFPs and helped pick project partners. We hosted 10 member meetings throughout the last 2 years to deliver information, answer questions, and ensure members had the knowledge they needed to make decisions. We held 2 days of member info sessions, and this was an interesting piece for our members because not only did they receive more detailed information, they were able to touch and feel a lot of the product that was going to be used, but they also got to pick their door color. Our design committee felt it was very important for our members to be able to personalize their unit in a small way. So they created a palette of 12 different colors, and our members were able to choose the color for their doors. We also held 11 coffee with the GM sessions, and we started these because we found that there were some members that weren't comfortable speaking up or asking questions in a large members meeting where there could be 250 people in the room. So instead, after hours, after work, we hosted these smaller, more intimate sessions where people could sit down and talk to me and ask me questions and really get a better, deeper understanding on the project. As of this month, we've now issued 21 written communications, and those are what we're now calling our retrofit monthly updates. And they're the more deeper dive into what's going on, what may have changed through construction, and how best can we update our members and provide them detailed information. And then I've also personally sent thousands and thousands of calls, emails, text messages, and one-on-one meetings. And as part of this, I also, every morning, I walk through the community, being present and being available for members just to stop me one-on-one and ask me a question or ask for clarification on something. And the other most important thing we're doing as we're going through the construction is we're doing what we call our 421 notice communication plan. And what that means is for each building that is about to enter construction, members get a notice with information at the 4 weeks before, 2 weeks before, and the week before. And this is where we communicate specific information about their unit and their building. And we also stress some of the factors that will impact them, things like the noise from doing the demo on the stucco, pieces like that. As part of it, because we knew that, excuse me, ultimately members had to approve the project and authorize the board to borrow the funds, because that is coded in our bylaws, we decided to take it a step further and do a 3-step member approval process. And we did this because we wanted to give members the opportunity to pull off the road as we went through it, as they gained more information. So the first approval we asked for was to issue the RFP for the prime consultant. The second was to issue the RFP for the construction manager. And the third was to authorize the board to borrow the funds. And I'm happy to report that at those 3 members' meetings, we averaged 225 members, and the vote was in 88% in favor. These were some of the highest attended meetings in the history of Sarcee Meadows, and it truly showed that our engagement plan worked and our members were comfortable making the decision. So some of the other member decisions, we talked about the color of doors. We also went to them and asked every single member, what accessibility needs do you have? And part of that influenced the design decisions. For example, we used lever handles on all of our entry doors as opposed to knobs, because members told us that they were easy to open if they had issues with their hands. We also provided ramps to any member that's requested them. And through one of our engagement sessions, we actually had a member put forward a suggestion that we ended up incorporating into the design. And it's what we call our accessibility stairs. And what those are, excuse me, is the rise or the height of the stair is 5 inches as opposed to the standard 8. And the run or the width of the stair is 13 inches as opposed to 9 to 10 inches. And it makes a huge difference for members that are using walkers or canes, because they have a larger area to put their assisted device or their feet as they're climbing the stairs. We also gave them the option to purchase a front or back deck cover, as each unit is getting brand new decks, and a number of members had expressed an interest in wanting a cover for it. We've also allowed them the option to purchase gates for their decks, and this was especially important for members that had pets. That allows them to keep them on the deck and not roam into the community. So we're about a year into construction. It's going to take us about 2.5 years to complete. And we've already got some great learnings that we are going to be sharing with the Cooperative Housing Federation of Canada, and use for future projects that we might undertake. So the first is information is key. And we know we provided a lot of information to our members, but we also learned you can't provide too much information. Anything that you're using to make decisions on design or technical aspects, share it with members. The more they know, the more engaged they're going to be in the process, and the easier the decision making will become. Maximize member decision making. We provided 3 opportunities for approval. We could have done more, and we probably should have. We probably should have taken the design and had members approve it as a whole, as opposed to just presenting to them and relying on the fact that the member design committee developed it. Also, more time before meetings. And what we mean by this is get the information out early to give members a longer period to review and digest the information that's going to be discussed and questioned at the meeting. And provide full budget. We provided high-level breakdowns. We could have gone deeper, and we had a number of members say that it would have helped them better make their decisions around the project. And also solicit feedback before the meetings. Reach out to members and ask them if they have questions to send them in advance, because that allows you to better control or give better informed answers in the meeting. And it also allows you to create a question and answer document that could be circulated to members, and taking away some of the conflictions that might arise during the meeting. And we're very proud with how far we've come. As I said, we're a year into the project with about another 18 months to go. But we've just finished doing a member satisfaction survey overall, and one of the questions did ask about the look and feel, and almost 90% of our members are happy with the look and feel of the completed buildings. So thank you very much for the time today.
Thank you so much, John. I just like the buildings look amazing, and
Thank you.
I can't even wrap my head around how giant of a project this is for a cooperative.
Yep.
One thing
50.
that I really thought was really cool too was that you have a design committee, but they provided some selection for the members so that they could select their own door colors.
Yep.
I think that's
And
very
interestingly, the number one selected door color was bright red.
Yes, of course. Beautiful. Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we've now entered into our Q&A period. So I would invite anyone to add any questions you might have for our speakers into the Q&A box. I think I see there's one question in the chat that I can answer in a minute, but before we do that, I wanted to put out a question to our speakers, but I also want to invite all of our listeners to share your thoughts about this question in the chat. So we recognize that there is a gap in knowledge when it comes to how to effectively engage with residents during these large-scale capital repair projects. And so I would love to hear your ideas about like if you could create an online tool, a guide, or a checklist to support housing providers in resident engagement with resident engagement, what key features or resources would you consider essential? So, John, did you want to kick us off?
Sure. Um, Connections to other organizations that might have gone through a similar project or might be farther along in the planning project. We greatly benefited from Sundance Housing Cooperative in Edmonton. They have just completed their deep energy retrofit, and we had multiple conversations with them, and they actually essentially handed over to us their engagement plan, which we took and adapted for our community, and it really gave us a great starting point. So those network of connections would be a hugely important piece, allowing others that may not be as large or may not have the resources that an organization like ours does to reach out and take key learnings.
Yeah, that's great. Caitlin?
Yeah, first of all, like I totally agree with what John's saying. I'm kind of maybe building off of that and off of one of my later slides. I think templates for those engagement plans, templates for the type of communications that are really standard to go out to residents, showing how you're communicating the benefits. Just sort of example verbiage can really help, especially I think in those organizations that may not have a lot of capacity or familiarity with doing this work beforehand.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Templates are just so amazing when you can't quite think through how to do it, and having that guide there to show you exactly how to do it is so helpful. Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. I don't see any comments in the chat, but if you think of anything as we're going through the Q&A, with regards to what you would like to see in an online tool or a resource, please do drop a couple lines and let us know. So I am seeing a question from Quinn, so maybe I'll just read it out. So I love these types of stories. They're very inspiring. That being said, I'm located in an area of the country where cooperatives are scattered, single-family homes across different sites and properties. It seems like funding is geared primarily to large organizations located on one site. How can smaller organizations with less members on multiple properties transition to net zero via these funding streams when they seem to only accommodate large-scale projects on one site? So, Caitlin and John, I don't know if you have anything specific or general that you could add to that. And it's fine, I do have a couple of words to say.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I am not a funding officer here at SAW, but I will say that we do fund projects large and small. So I would invite you to go to our website. We'll be posting the link a little bit later in the talk. I'll be talking about some of our resources that we have. And we also have another great resource, which is a regional energy coach who can help you find funding in your region. So again, I will post a link to that a little bit later, just like before we end. So hopefully
Yeah.
that'll provide you some steps. John, did
And
you have something?
I would absolutely echo the benefit of the regional energy coach. We engaged one through CHF Canada, and his advice and guidance through the application process and through the planning process was invaluable. And firmly believe that one of the reasons we received funding through the Green Municipal Fund was because of the energy coach. So reach out, find one, use them. They're worth their weight in gold.
That's so great to hear. Perfect. Okay, so I see another question in the chat. What survey questions? What survey questions are you using before the project starts and after completion? So I guess a couple of examples of survey questions.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have actually developed our own resident survey, which I think will be on our website soon, so people can actually see that and maybe use that as a template. But we're largely focusing on people's comfort in their suites. So, in the summertime, in this room, are you too hot, too cold, etc.? That kind of gets at sort of if systems are oversized, what kind of issues there might be, if there's too much solar gain, etc. And then also just kind of questions about their behaviors. Do you experience, certain issues with odors, for example, drafts, for example? What do you do about that? To kind of just really identify in the pre-retrofit survey any of the opportunities to improve residents' comfort and improve their quality of life through the retrofit measures, right? And then in the post retrofit, we'll ask pretty much the same sample of questions in the first half so that we can do some matching, right? We can see the percent change. I'm so sorry, this room does not love me. And then also we'll ask additional questions about whatever system is installed. As I said, like teaching people about how to use the system is really important. So we'll ask them like, how easy is it to use your heat pump? Do you feel comfortable doing this? Do you know how to change it from heating to cooling? That's kind of a little extra section that we'll add in the post retrofit. I used heat pumps as an example. It could be a different system. Yeah.
So we didn't do any surveying around the retrofit beforehand, but it with the timing of our biannual member satisfaction and engagement, we did use this as the opportunity to include a few questions in that, and a couple of them were really geared towards we're a year in, year and a half left. How can we learn more to be better as we go? So the first one is how satisfied are you with the look and feel of the units that have had their retrofit completed? And this is really to the early stages of gauging, do you like what we did? And then if you've had your units retrofit completed or in progress, how satisfied are you with the process? And then the third is an open-ended one, which was what recommendations could you make that would improve the process? And this one has given us a lot of information. One of the suggestions, and it went into last month's retrofit update, was to give a more detailed breakdown of the steps of construction, including which steps will they have to be inside the unit and which steps will be outside. We had provided high level, but this told us go deeper. So we did, it was almost 3 pages that really detailed each individual step of the process so the members know exactly what to expect.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. I don't see any other questions. Oh, wait, we just had another question come in here. So what are some lessons learned from the prefabricating work in tenants units, especially the bulkhead construction and the ERV installation? So I think, Caitlin, you were talking about bulkhead construction prior to, right?
Yeah. I think with the bulkhead construction, it really just made the process easier. There's less sort of dust and less things going on in suite, and I think when you have apartments that have fairly standardized layouts, we had a couple of different standard layouts within this complex that we were working on. The measurements are generally the same, and also you can just prefabricate outside of the suite. It's really easy for the contractor as well, because I think contractors also don't necessarily want to spend too much time working in the suites. They understand that there's a lot more that they have to consider when they're doing that. So being able to prefabricate it outside and then bring it in was easier for them, and it was easier for the residents.
Yeah. John, are you guys engaging in any like using any prefabrication work in your construction?
No, we're not. We did look at it, but because we knew beyond the ERV installation, um, almost all the work is exterior work. And we knew that we were going to run into to wood rot, mold. So we needed it limited our ability for prefabrication. We also lucked out in that our plumbing chases run behind the mirror in the bathrooms in all but 49 of our units. So only those 49 do we actually have to build a bulkhead that connects one of the bedroom closets to the bathroom. But one of our key lessons, specifically around the ERVs, is um, find ways not to let members turn them off.
Yeah.
Because our first few, the members were complaining that it was very loud, so they were turning them off, and we had to work with them to explain you can't. Here's why, and it led to the development of a one pager, very easily understood and digest. This is what an ERV does. Here's how it works. Here's what not to do, and here are some issues that may arise that we'll help you with.
Hmm. Yeah. Soon enough, I imagine there'd be some moisture in the units and then people would be not so happy. I
Yeah,
think we have time for one more quick question. So I see one more here. How do you handle situations where tenants need to be displaced from a suite for a few days, and where do they go? So if we could maybe just quickly touch on this one,
yeah.
that'd be great.
So as I said, we've had to displace one member so far. It was actually a family of three, and we're pretty lucky in that just across the street essentially is a hotel casino. So we put them up in the hotel for the period that they were going to be out of the unit, covered their room and their food and beverage costs for the period. And it was the only way that we could approach it. They had to be removed, because we had to drop their living room ceiling, and the drywall compound in our ceilings and walls is asbestos containing. So because it was work that needed to be done, we felt the importance of ensuring that they were safe and secure during that period.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much. Those were amazing questions. Thank you to everyone. I am just going to let you know a little bit more about some of the resources that we have. So, an important part of the sustainable affordable housing mandate is to build the sector's capacity in energy efficient projects. So, we have a number of initiatives on the go and resources on our website, including a breakdown of the different types of funding that we offer. So, I really encourage you to go take a look at all of the information we have on there. We also have case studies, resource libraries, and other tools that can help you get a sense of what's already been done. Our main thing is let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's copy what's already been done and what's worked for others in the past. We also offer peer learning opportunities for individuals who have a plan or study grant and are looking to move that into a capital project because we know that it's such a big endeavor. And lastly, we're really thrilled to have partnered with the Community Housing Transformation Center and the Saskatchewan Environmental Society to bring you the Building Operator Training course. This is a free online course with modules that have been adapted from SES's 20-year program, bringing it to diverse audiences. So again, check out our website and maybe sign up for the bot training course. And then last but not least, I want to talk to you briefly about our Regional Energy Coach program. So the program is co-funded between us and the Community Housing Transformation Center. RECs are hosted at the center and then at several regional and subsector organizations to provide customized support by region or subsector. The coaches can help affordable energy providers start their planning for energy efficient retrofits and new builds. So they can guide you through the process of identifying opportunities, look at different technologies available, and provide insights on how to maximize the environmental impact. They are also more keenly aware of the different funding options available to you in your region. So I encourage you, my colleagues have dropped the link in the chat. I encourage you to reach out to your coach and start that conversation. So thank you again so much for all of your questions and your feedback. If you have any further questions, I encourage you to reach out to us via the following channels listed online. Thank you so much and have an amazing day.